You can open your Bibles to Acts chapter 2. Before I go there, I received an email, I'll read you part of it, from a ministry in Texas. The email states that I love all of Pastor Joe's sermons. I'm even teaching some churches around the San Antonio area, Texas, the same teachings. And this person's ministry is located in Texas and surrounding areas. And what he's established is in his own ministry is, and the teachings that he's referring to, is the Last Day series. He's going church to church when he can, besides his own ministry, teaching what he's been taught here. There's been hundreds of thousands of Last Day downloads. It doesn't mention how many people, what I'm not mentioning is how many people have visited the video portion of all the Last Day teachings. I'm just talking about the written, online, free teaching that you could download and print yourself. But if you want a paperback, you can go to Amazon. The links are on the website, and you can buy it there at cost. We don't sell for profit. But just the downloads that you can find on the website, the messages, there's been hundreds and thousands. Last time I checked, over 300,000. So, why has the access to those teachings been available? I'm not going to take all the credit for it. The people behind the scenes here are not going to take all the credit for it. And you might ask, why? Why don't you take the credit for it? The reason is because you have partnered with me to deliver this message. And not just the last days, in everything that's preached here. You have partnered with me. There was, oh, there still is, but back in the 70s, Paul and Jan Crouch of Trinity Broadcast Network, TBN. The only thing that I probably could agree with in what they produced there is identifying the people that participated with them as partners. And you'll know the reasons why here in a few minutes as I teach on it. And I repeat, the reason why we're able to do what we do is because there's been faithful people out there that has partnered with this ministry to deliver the message that is preached here. I consider you my partners. And that's how this particular ministry was able to find us, because of the partnership that we have together. You could open your Bible to Acts chapter 2, if you haven't already. Verse 42. When you read through the New Testament, you're going to find one primary word that is translated as fellowship. Write that word down. That is the subject matter tonight. Fellowship. It's the Greek word koinonia. Koinonia. This is an important word. It derives from koinos, which means to have something in common. Something in common. It conveys the idea of fellowship. So let's write that down again. Interaction. Mutual participation. Or partnership. Or partnership. Fellowship. To have something in common, primarily used to convey the idea of fellowship, interaction, mutual participation, and partnership. A good example of this is found in Acts chapter 2, verse 42. Let's read it. And they continued steadfast in the apostles' doctrines or instructions. It could also be used there. Let's back it up. And they continued steadfast. Steadfast there is persevere. And they persevered continuously in the apostles' instruction and fellowship, and in breaking of bread, and in prayers. So the word fellowship. It is koinonia in the Greek. And we find it right at the beginning of the early church. The onset of the early church, in what these followers of the apostles' instruction participated like. They broke bread, they had prayers, they received instruction and fellowship. What does that mean? Fellowship, interaction, mutual participation, and partnership. With one another. With one another. The fellowship that was created, the partnership that came along with it, became so strong that it carried them through tribulation after tribulation. but to discover the level in which they entered into this partnership, this fellowship, we need to look at other verses where either koinonia is used or it's related to, and how it was used, to get a better idea what this word means and how to use it and how to apply it. Go to Luke chapter 5. We'll be doing some traveling tonight in the scriptures. In case you haven't figured out my style of preaching, I'm not so much of a storyteller. I like to stay close to the Word and let that provide all the storytelling that's necessary. Not that I'm against storytelling, it's just I don't use it very much. There's so much in the Word, it doesn't really need for me to add too much in addition to what it already provides. Here we see an example of koinonia conveying the idea of partnership in Luke chapter 5 verse 7. And they beckoned unto their partners which were in the other ship, that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both the ships, so that they began to sink. Now, this story here in the scriptures is referring to a miraculous catch of fish that Jesus supplied. When you read verse 5, it says, And Simon, which is Peter, answering, said unto him, Master, we have toiled all night and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word I will let down the net. They were fishing. These were fishermen by trade, and they caught absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. They fished all night and caught nothing. So what Jesus said, he told them to cast their nets on the other side. And they obeyed, and they caught a huge amount, massive amount of fish. So much fish that the nets started to break. Now Peter, being an experienced professional fisherman, knew that he couldn't handle this massive catch by himself. So what he did, he called to the other fishermen in a nearby boat to come and help him, to come and assist him. Luke 5 says, let's read it again, and they beckoned unto their partners. And they beckoned unto their partners, circle that word, which were in the other ship, that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both the ships, so they began to sink. Too much fish now. Now the word partners, methkos, that's an E. The word partners here, methkos, in this verse is from a form of koinonia. It refers to a legitimate business partner or partners. Some scholars believe that this word is used in this context to let us know that Simon or Peter owned the fishing business, which included more than one boat. It was an enterprise. And the people that he was crying out to for help were either his business associates or business partners. Now, we don't know for sure. They could have even been co-owners or maybe employees of this fishing business, or just employees that worked for Peter. No matter what the situation was, they were all working together. Working together. With the mission now, they're focused in this joint venture to catch the fish that Jesus made available to them because their obedience of listening to him in the first place. Just think about it. They're fishing all night. Then here comes Jesus. Just throw your nets on the other side. Sure, Jesus. What do you know about fishing? Now, if you're building a house or making furniture because you were a carpenter by trade, maybe I'll listen to you. You would know better than I would at how I could accomplish that. But fishing, that's our business. You don't have to tell us what to do. We know what we're doing. But that's not what happened. They obeyed Jesus' command, and they cast the nets on the other side. And they caught an abundance of fish. So much fish that the boats were starting to sink. You got that? Business partners. Business partners. A real, legitimate business relationship partners. Go to Philippians. Chapter 1. Verse 5. Now here, Paul uses the word koinonia in Philippians chapter 1, verse 5. For your fellowship or koinonia in the gospel from the first day until now. He was passionate about these people, this Philippian church, because they were a very faithful, supportive church, supportive to Paul's ministry. He says, for your fellowship in the gospel from the first day until now. As I said, the word fellowship in this verse 5, is from the Greek word koinonia, which means, once again, a partnership or a mutual participation in some event, project, mission. And this word is often referred to in the scriptures to a partner. We can even also, let's go back to the board and put it here, a sharer. A sharer. Or even, let's just write it down here, a companion. Paul felt about his partners the same way I feel about my partners. I got my cue from Paul to start with. See, I actually believe you're actual partners with this ministry. We're in this together, folks. by supporting Faith Come by Hearing ministries with your finances, your prayers. You have entered as a partner into the work of Faith Come by Hearing ministries with me. And what that means, we are mutually side by side on the front lines. I don't take our relationship casual. It's not a casual relationship. And you, if this is where you call your church or the ministry that you follow, shouldn't do that either. Especially if you understand what fellowship means. When Paul wrote to these Philippians and mentions or spoke about their partnership in the gospel, you didn't think he meant it? Of course he did. They were his partners. That was his mindset. Paul was doing his part, and they were doing their part. I'm doing my part. You are doing your part. What does that mean? Just like they were, if we're in unison with what the Scriptures instructs us to be like as partners, we're really a heck of a team. A team that's having an eternal impact. That's why I started with this message. From this person that runs a ministry and goes around teaching at churches. Presently, concerning the last days messages that I have preached. And because we're one heck of a team, that was made possible. We're on the same team. We're moving forward. We have the same goal. We just have different roles to accomplish, to complete the mission. Let's look at another example. Philippians chapter 4. I want this to sink in. Verse 4 reads, "Notwithstanding, ye have well done that ye did communicate with my affliction." It's suku onio in the Greek there. I'll write that one down. Suku onio. Paul was commending their generous offering that they sent him for his ministry. And he was in jail at the time. Notwithstanding, ye have done well that ye did sukononio. Sukononio. Communicate. That word is another example, another use of the word koinonia. Listen. As far as we know, Paul had 3 missionary journeys. And over those years, Paul traveled from place to place. Sometimes he spent a few years. But he traveled and preached, and he raised churches. He raised up churches. He worked with leaders. He gave his life to the church. And Paul poured into those churches, no matter where he went. None of them, as far as we know, helped him financially the way they should have. None of them. In order to cover his expenses, just imagine what Paul would have done if he didn't have to worry about a secular job. In order to cover expenses, Paul worked as a tent maker and selling fabrics for those tents also. And he did that during the day. And then he would, after the day was over, go and train leaders and preach Jesus during the evenings. Do I think that was the best plan? No. But because no one or very few would support him, he had to do what he had to do. He was pouring his heart and his soul into these churches that were not financially helping him bear his load. And like I said, Paul wrote this letter while he was in prison in Rome. And he wrote it because he received an offering, a letter and an offering from the Philippians. And it was a sizable offering that church sent to him to support him in his times of difficulty. What am I saying? The Philippian church didn't make excuses or didn't really make statements with their heart not into it. They didn't say, well, we'll pray for your situation, Paul. It's unfortunate you're in prison right now. And then they'll probably forget it to even pray or participate anyway. By the next day. Instead, they understood the responsibility they had to help him. So they took up the offering to support him. They koinonia, they communicated their love for him and what he was doing. What am I saying? They took responsibility for him. And that's why Paul used the word koinonia, or related words that attach to it, to convey the meaning of responsibility for others. All these meanings are very important, especially when you're going through turbulent times. And I'm not just talking about offerings here. You go to Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament. What does it say? Verses 9 and 10. What does it say? Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Listen, when you're alone and you're dealing with tough, difficult situations, you're going through some tribulation, it's hard to get through those times by yourself. But if you're connected in fellowship, in a real partnership with other believers, you feel a sense of responsibility for your well-being. Someone will be there to hold you up. It could be family members that you have this common denominator with. That is Jesus, obviously. It could be friends. It could be your church. It could be the ministry. It could be this ministry. How many times I've told you, because people say, well, I don't want to tell you my life story. Well, if this is the only place that you can tell that life story to, then tell it. Write me a letter, write me an email. So I could identify what you're going through and either pray for it or whatever other means this ministry might participate in. That's what this ministry does. That's why it's 24/7. That's why there's so many archived messages, written and video. So it can provide a place that you can seek out. A place that you could write to. The place you can ask for prayer. Knowing that as soon as you sent that communication, someone on the other side is going to see it and communicate to me immediately or within, at the most, hours. I don't sleep much. I can't even tell you how many times in the middle of the night that I check the message that have been sent to me to review. You could experience koinonia in your own life. Like I said, because you have family around you that have a common denominator, and that common denominator is Jesus. They could be a great source of encouragement and real partners in your life. It could be a tight group of friends. I don't know what your situation is, but when you can rely on those people, you feel the help, you feel the assistance, that you're not alone. And that's just the physical flesh that I'm referring to. I'm not even mentioning, which is even far superior, and that is the ear of the Lord. When you finally, by faith, realize without any doubts whatsoever that what he said is true. I will never leave you or forsake you. And when you finally get to that point, you come to the realization that you're never alone. Never. You might not saw another person for a year if you're out in some desert location. And never feel alone. If you arrive to the point where you really, truly have put your faith in what Christ said, I will never leave you or forsake you. And because of that, you'll never feel alone. And when turbulent times come, you know where your source of strength ultimately comes from, and that is the Lord. If you have physical acquaintances, that can be of assistance and also could be an encouragement and strength. But it doesn't substitute what the Lord can provide. That's just the icing on the cake. I don't believe God made any of us to live in isolation. That's why we need to stay rooted in koinonia, in fellowship, and in partnership with other believers. That's why you need to remain in koinonia. If this is where you have planted yourself, you need a koinonia in fellowship as partners. You imagine if you're a business partner in a secular world and one partner is doing all the work and you're just sitting back there just reaping the benefits. That is how many of you have treated this ministry. You just sit there as couch potatoes, listening and listening and listening, or reading and reading and reading, and you never communicate. You never have any kind of fellowship or partnership with us, whether it's with words or an offering or anything. I'm going to be gone for a week. How many of you, after hearing that, already checked out and say, well, I'll talk to you in a week or so? And in the meantime, you'll pull up something in the archives, I'll be talking to you, but it'll be silence coming this way. You're not treating this as a partnership. You're not taking your responsibility seriously. On occasion I get upset, I get angry, righteous indignation, by the way, type of anger, and I express it. I pray for the day I never have to do that again. Can you see how important fellowship, koinonia, really is? It's obvious to me when we read through the New Testament that the early church was grounded, rooted in fellowship and partnership. It's obvious to me that Paul cherished those who were in fellowship and in partnership with him. If this ministry did everything that we already done, or face every challenge we already either face or are going to face, and did it all alone, it would or it will been or be more difficult. But I'm a firm believer with the power of the Holy Spirit and the strength of others around us, people who took their partnership seriously, God has enabled and He will continue to enable us to do the impossible and to overcome every situation that will ever try to come against us. And you can say that about your own life also. You're going to have people that provide you strength, You're going to have people that you're going to be the one that provides the strength to. And the reason why you'll feel like that, because you have this sense of responsibility because of your real, legitimate partnerships that you make in your own life. And I'm saying tonight, the Word is saying tonight, that's the way you should treat this ministry too. I repeat, we have something in common. Koinonia. We have interaction, hopefully. We understand some mutual participation. We understand it is a partnership. Why? Because we're sharers of what is being done in this ministry, and that is getting the rightly divided word out. Don't undervalue the partnership. It's time to koinonia up. You got it? Play the song.